Live. Live. Says I'm live. With you never know until people start to show up, but I'm going to assume you're out there and I'm live. There is a slight delay, probably 15-20 second delay at least, but hopefully you're out there. Anyone out there? Am I all alone in the big world? Hello, hello, hello. Okay, good. I think it looks like I'm live. At least I'm not dead. That's good. Let's see. Nothing popped up yet. Jennifer K, yo back, Google account. You are live. So we're live. Sounds like good. And we're going to Mr. Cap. Hi, happy Wednesday, and the same to you, my friend. Hope you're having a good time where you are. Not getting too much snow and rain. Holmes. Let's see. David Martin. Hello from Alabama. Mark and Art. Hello. Code. Don't be messing things up. My dog's, come on up here. Come here. I go live, my voice, when I'm in the van talking, I'm in the van because it's not a very pleasant day where I am. And when I'm in the van talking, it upsets Cody. It just throws him off. Because I don't go around talking to myself all the time, really. Come on. Let people see you. There you go. See? He's real. I don't make him up. A lot of people see him in real life and they say he's a lot smaller than I thought. And on the screen, he looks bigger. And they say that about me too. You say, you're a lot smaller than I thought. I thought you were tall. No, I'm not tall at all. I'm a little shrimp. I want you to know that I am the average American height, 5'8". I'm not a shrimp. I'm average. Nothing wrong with being average. I think of myself as very average. Aaron Rose, hi Bob, 95 degrees here in East Tennessee. I'm glad you're there and I'm here. I'm cold. I'm wearing a jacket. I don't know if you can really see it, but I'm wearing a jacket. I'm in Oregon, my last day in Oregon, leaving Oregon before it snows. In fact, the last time I drove back to my mom's from camping, when I'm in Oregon, I camp 4 days a week and they're split. It's actually 3.5 days here, 3.5 days there, but I'm actually out camping 4 nights. And then I go back to my mom's. And let me address an issue came up. People asked, well, Bob, you've been at that lake a long time. Are you breaking the law? No, because I'm not here for a whole week at a time. I'm here for 12 days a month. And I'm confident that I'm not even sure what the laws are in this area, but I'm not breaking the law. There's been very few people here. I always leave it as clean or cleaner than I found it. So, yeah, there's no question that I don't believe I'm breaking the law at all because 12 days a month, not even 14. At any rate, so I lost track of where I was talking about. I'm leaving Oregon before the passes get snowed. Medford rarely gets snow where my sister is, but the passes all in and out of Medford all get snow, often are closed. And I don't want to be trapped in here. Got things to do, places to go, and things to see. So I'm out. Tomorrow morning, I head out of Oregon. Okay, we have announcements. Let me do some announcements. First, let me read I like to read letters that I get from people to let you know why I'm doing the things I'm doing, why I'm running this channel, why my great friend Sue Ann and I started Homes on Wheels Alliance together. And everything we do is to answer questions like this. I got this. This is an email. I'm reading it exactly as it was written. I got it this week. Dear Bob, I need help. I get a lot of emails with those 3 words. I have lost everything in my life, my family, my home, everything. I'm 68 years old. I'm going to buy a Dodge Caravan used and leave. Good choice. I want to find someone to help me find places to go and someone that help me where to go. And once I'm there, how do I live this way? It's such a radically different way of life and a change of life that most people would really like to get some help. I've watched your videos for a very long time. I'd like to find out what you call a tribe. I'd like to find what you call a tribe. He wants to find the tribe. Someone to travel with and show me the ropes. Please, Bob, can you help me? I can't afford to rent. I'm on Social Security of $1141 a month, $1,141 a month, and I have to live on that. Please help me, Bob. Thank you, sir. Um, and that's a good wage when you're living in a van. You can live reasonably well on $1,141 a month. If you're living in a lot of places in this country, you can't survive on 1141. You can barely rent an apartment for 1,000, 800, 900, 1,000 plus utilities often, deposits, and first and last month's rent, the deposit, another 1,000. You can't survive in this country. A lot of people. But and so if you switch to living in a van, you can not just survive, you can thrive. You go where you want, you can establish new community, new friends. It's a good life. And so that's why I'm doing all this work. So you'll know about it and you'll have an option. Lynette Noyes, I love your energy. Thank you, Lynette. Okay, and also I want to remind everyone about the emergency fund. Two incredible people donated a whole lot of money, $18,000, into an emergency fund. And so we have an emergency fund, and you can apply for it. And you can go to homesonwheelsalliance.org/programs and find the emergency fund and apply there. Here's an example. I just wanted to thank you all for your help getting our RV fixed so we could get back on the road and to our next job. And they talk about the job, and I don't want to give away their information. But they had a job lined up, they were driving to it, and their RV breaks down. They don't have any money. What do? They don't have the money to fix the RV. They got to get to their work so they can have some money. They're just stuck. It's really, it's a true emergency. Without your help, we would have had to end our life on the road and would have been homeless. And this was their next stop, living on the streets in a cardboard box. And that's not a good stop. That's a stop we'd like to avoid. I can't express how truly grateful I am. And as soon as we start making some money, we definitely plan on giving back to your organization. And that's the plan. See, we help you. You get back on your feet. You help us. We help someone else. And it becomes this thing where we take care of each other, and so we all benefit from the care and concern of a tribe. That's the way tribes should work, and that's how we want this to work. We have made it to the state where they were going to work and have settled into our campground. We ran into a few hiccups along the way, including 3 blown tires in one day. So, even if you have an emergency fund, it can be eaten up really quickly. But we finally made it. Again, thank you. You were our miracle that helped us to be able to continue to follow our dream of living on the road. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. The Richards family. Oh, and I read who they were. I carefully, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, am I? Okay, so just to keep you informed of why we do what we're doing and some of the tremendous success we're having. So, and that emergency fund is there for you. If you're a nomad and you're on the road and you have an emergency, it's there waiting for you too. And then hopefully you'll give back to it, and it'll be an ongoing opportunity for all of us to serve and help one another. Okay, here are announcements for today. We're starting a build in I don't know if I'm supposed to say where we're doing the build soon, really soon. And so we are at that time. We will build and give away two trailers. One of them is a 6x10 trailer, which we will build, and we're open to making that a handicap trailer. In fact, we'd love to do a handicap trailer to show an example of how to build a handicap trailer. If you are handicapped and are looking to be on the road and can live in a 6x10 cargo trailer with the drop-down door, we'd love to hear from you, because we have one we're going to build. And if not, you can apply for it. And we also have another trailer. A very generous person, donated a tab trailer, a really new, nice tab trailer. It's very small. They found it was too small for them, so that's why they're donating it. It was too small for them, but it's a very nice trailer, and a lot of you would love to have it. So if you're interested in a 6x10 trailer build out, cargo trailer, or a tab trailer, um, or a school bus. We have a school bus that was donated. Our wonderful friend David, who passed away, his family, and he donated his schoolie. Hannah, you can see Hannah on my channel. I did a video on Hannah, Hannah the schoolie. Just look that up on Cheap RV Living YouTube channel, and you can go look at it. It's a nice bus, all set up. We're thinking in terms of a family, but it doesn't have to be. Anyone who wants it. We do think you should have a little bigger emergency fund with a schoolie. They do take more work. They take more repairs and upkeep, and just the diesel engine, just changing the oil on that diesel is a big deal, and on and on. So we do have special requirements for any of these things. You need to apply to go to homesonwheelsalliance.org/programs. And then you'll find the different programs. One of them will be the schoolie, one of them will be the trailers, and so on. Okay. Now we're going to be starting these builds on these vehicles, including we have already we've closed applications. We have 2 minivans we're doing builds for, but we've closed applications, so you can't apply for those 2. That's coming up here in less than 2 weeks. So we've closed that application. However, you can contribute toward it. We have a wish list, and Casey, you'll have to remind me again. We have a wish list set up on Amazon, and you can go there and buy things for the Build-Out 2019. And so they would just go to Amazon to How Build-Out. Say it again, Casey. How Build-Out 2019, and then you'll find our wish list. We have a link. We'll put the link down in the description. This video will go up on YouTube just like any other video, unless we mess it up, and which we won't, and then we can get it back, which hopefully we can. Hush, Bob. Dig a hole. Stop digging. So we'll put the link down below, and maybe some of the moderators can throw in the link right now so you can see it. And you can go there to the wish list, and we have things we need to buy people. We're putting in solar on everything, so we need all the solar components. We're trying to give everyone a van they move in. Everything you need is in the van. So we'll get a mattress and just about every. Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sue-Ann said to have you say the link because people won't find it just by the name.
Oh, so the name, you can't just use the name. I wondered how you would find that. Where would you type in that at Amazon? Here's the link. It's https://amzn.to. That's not the normal lead in because it's a link. It's an affiliate link. So it's amzn.to/2JZ4J3C. I'll say that again. https://amzn.to/2JZ4J3C. Okay, I think we got that. Next, let me announce, for those of you who need medical care or dental care, it's available for free in Pahrump. It's coming right up, so really it's almost too late to get there. It's October 4th through 6th. An organization called RAM, Remote Area Medical. They put on big events, and there's one in Pahrump, Nevada. Some of us have gone to them before, gotten dental work there. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's free, absolutely free. You'll see real dentists, real equipment, all right there, ready to go. It's amazing, but you need to get there. I think you actually need to be there on the 3rd. I'm not exactly sure of the details, but you can get all the details. What's RAM's website? right there. It's she gave. It's all there. So you go to ramusa.org, ramusa.org, and you can find out all about it there. And I'm not going to give you all the details. Okay. Public service announcement. We had a friend of the community had bought one of the car top carriers. It had warped in the heat, and he stopped. He pulled over, got safely off the side of the road to go up and fix it, and he was killed by a driver who couldn't keep his vehicle on the road. It's hard to believe. A horrible tragedy, horrible accidental chain of events. So we want you to be aware of that they can warp in the heat. If there's any chance it's hot enough for them to warp, throw a strap around it, like a ratchet strap, and ratchet it down so that it can't fly open on you while you're driving, and you won't be forced to pull over the side of the road. Okay, finally, oh man, a lot of announcements, aren't there? We'll get to the tents. Today we're talking about tents, living in a tent. PBS NewsHour is looking for people to interview. They had a grant. They were given a grant by the Sloan Foundation to do a series of PBS NewsHour. This is big time. And one of the segments they want to do on older workers. It's on older workers, people who can't retire. They have to be 55 or over, and they're doing a segment on nomads, on people who live in RVs and vans and working on the road. And you can, if you're interested, you can be on PBS NewsHour and tell your story and give an honest view. And I'm sure that PBS will give an honest view. You go to pbsinterviews@gmail.com. You can contact them that way. It's PBS interviews, plural, just like it spells, at gmail.com. And you can get in on that. Okay, I think I'm done. I've done enough of that. All right, so let's go back here to card number 1, live feed questions. We're talking about tents, and it's a question that comes up a lot. Can I live in a tent as a nomad? And it's a complicated answer. It's not a simple yes or no. I wish it were, because then life would be simple, but life is rarely simple. I'll give you my short answer. You have to divide. Here's my short answer to can you practically live in a tent? Then I'll answer all your specific questions that you've sent in and will send in during the broadcast. You have to divide the year into 2 halves. Half of the year, when it's cold, you go up in the national forest. You're in the forest somewhere. Tents are fantastic. You can live really great in a tent in the national forest. It's until winter strikes, and then you can't be in a tent in the national forest any longer, can you? Because they'll be covered with snow. Most of the roads in most national forests are closed for the winter with snow, and you can't get in or out, and you would be trapped. For the most part, tents are not a viable option in the winter in the national forest. It's a summer deal only. There might be a few places where you can, but there are very few. And at certain times of the year, it would be unbearable because it would be so cold and so snowy. You'd be trapped. But for half the year, for the summer and maybe some of the shoulder seasons, the national forest is great on a tent. All summer, 4 or 5 months of the summer, fantastic. I love the tent in the national forest. But then you got the rest of the year. Now, most of us are going to the desert Southwest, Arizona or Southern California. Those are the only parts of the desert Southwest that are really warm enough to camp in. And even there, it's a limited amount of space. People think they're going to go and live in a tent in New Mexico. I strongly suggest you not try. The wind blows as hard in most of the desert of New Mexico as it does in Arizona, and it is much colder. I believe the lowest place in all of New Mexico is 3,000 feet, and at 3,000 feet, it's cold. You will get snow. Almost certainly you'll get snow. You'll get very cold into the teens, and you can get very cold, snow, and a bad wind, and your life would be miserable. Do not think you're going to live in a tent in New Mexico over the winter. I just would not recommend it. There are much better choices. All of the Southern California desert is going to be acceptable to live in a tent, except for the wind. And the wind is bad, bad, bad. It can get cold. The desert at night gets quite cold. I would expect it to get down to the 30s every winter, wherever you are in the desert, Southwest, Arizona, or Southern California. So plan on cold, plan on wind, plan on rain. It rains in the desert. It does, and it doesn't do it often, but it does. Look at the RTR last year. Imagine you were in a tent at the RTR last year. It was cold, it was wet. The wind didn't blow too bad. Sometimes it does. It does all three at once. Sometimes it does really bad, all three. But we had like 2 days of really unpleasant rain and cold. It was just unpleasant. The desert is a bad place to live in a tent. I got to tell you that. I want you to know that. Now, we had 2 or 3, the first probably 4 or 5 years of the RTR, the winters were horrible with windstorms. Oh, they were awful. I remember the very first RTR, a lady came out in her car with a tent. She set her tent up. We had this terrible windstorm set in, blew the tent completely over. She left the next morning. She did come back. She became a friend of the community. But it was awful. It was really awful. And I have seen windstorms settle into the desert Southwest and last a week, where it just never stops. I mean, it never stops. I personally have never known anyone who came out to the desert to live in the tent who did it 2 years in a row. I've known some that made it, endured, and that's what it is. It's an endurance contest. Endured the first year in the tent, and then got out and came back in a van, and that's fine, or a trailer, or an RV, or whatever they were in. I don't know anyone who's done it 2 years in a row. If you've done it 2 years in a row, will you let me know, so that I don't keep telling? I say at least somebody has, but I don't know of anyone that has, because it's too miserable. Let's assume you buy a really good quality tent and it stands up to the desert wind. And there are some that will stand up to the desert wind. You got to sleep in there. You got to stay in there. And when the wind howls, I mean, howls. I have a friend with a wind generator, and he set it up through some of these windstorms. And part of what he does for his wind generator is he has one of these wind weather kits, weather detection kits. And he said so he knows the wind. He got a, what's that called? Windometer? That's not right, but he had one. And he said it was a steady 40-mile-an-hour wind with gusts up to 70. And man, that's misery, because it's also cold. Wind comes with storms. What happens in the desert Southwest, storms will blow in out of the north, the big storms that dump snow all across Washington and Oregon, and then Idaho and Montana and Wyoming, and then will blow across the country. We don't usually get the cold, or that kind of cold or snow or rain. We get the wind. The wind whips in these circular patterns around these storms, and the wind clobbers us. But what happens is we also get those exact same kinds of storms up out of the South Pacific. They come up through Mexico, and then they usually drive through New Mexico and Texas. That's why New Mexico and Texas have so many storms. It's a collision. So we will get them from both the north and the south, and every so often we'll get one from both ends, and that's when you get the windstorms, because the two weather patterns, one up here in the north, the northwest, and here's one coming up out of Mexico, and they get it, and we're right in the middle. We're in this no man's zone between them, and the winds will collide. I've been in the desert wind, and I mean literally watched it go in a complete circle in a day and come from all 360 degrees. I could literally watch the bushes blowing, and it came from all different directions in one day as these two storms, one from the north, one from the south, collided. I remember I was in Victorville once, which is above LA, and they have the Santa Anitas there, Santa Anas, and the winds, and they forecast the next day at noon the wind would start. And I saw, that's crazy. You can't forecast that the next day that far with a windstorm. The next day at straight up noon, bam. I mean, bam. I thought my trailer was going to blow over. I was in a 6x10 trailer at the time. I literally thought my trailer was going to blow over. And it blew for a week, and that's where I saw it go around in a corner circle. It was amazing. I've seen some horrible windstorms in the desert Southwest. So that went on for like the first 5 years. And then for the next 2 or 3, we had just really pleasant winters. We always get some wind. Um, well, I'll make this point. I will set up an awning outside because why put it up? You're going to take it down with the wind. It's not even worth the effort to me. I've known a lot of people who set up the easy ups and watched them blow away. I had a friend, Gary, if you're watching this, you'll remember this story. Uh, he had this horrible windstorm came up, and he had an easy up. He didn't get it down in time, and it blew away. He went out there, and it was just gone. And I was walking literally a mile away and found it in a wash. It had blown a mile. It had tumbled. And it was a complete disaster. And several people in camps didn't get theirs down in time, and theirs were all destroyed too. Um, it isn't a matter of how good the tent is. It isn't a matter of how the quality or how well staked down it is. You can probably, a high quality tent, you can keep it standing. But you're going to try and sleep in there, and let me assure you that it's going to be cold, and the wind it's going to be constant shaking. Just the awareness of the constant shaking. I don't care what the tent is. It's going to be shaking and flapping. And so this is going on all night. And there's going to be noise. It's going to be the howling of the wind. You hear the howling of the wind. It can be hard to sleep in a van because you're shaking. The van is literally shaking, and you hear it, and you hear things blowing around past you outside, and it's going like this, and the walls of the tent are going like this, and it's real cold. Any heat you have in there is just sucked out by the wind and blown away. Boy. I want you to be aware of how bad it is sleeping in a tent in the desert Southwest, how bad it can be. It isn't always that bad. I'll tell you another story. See, I've got a lot of stories because I've talked to a lot of people and had a lot of experiences with people out in the desert winds in tents. We had a couple of people came to us. They didn't even come to us. They were just talking to their friends. Their friends came to us meaning HOWA, Homes on Wheels Alliance. And they had come out in tents. They had made it through most of the winter, and we got a couple of really bad windstorms at the end, and they said they were just done. They couldn't stand it anymore. They couldn't stand being in those tents anymore. They were going to close up and quit and go. We offered, we knew them. They had become friends. And so HOWA, Homes on Wheels Alliance, offered to buy them good quality tents. And not only that, but we get them tested. We're going to find out, how are they going to hold up? Is a good quality tent durable enough? We bought one lady a Kodiak tent, and the other lady we bought a spring bar tent. Both these ladies were older, not, the best physical condition. They're kind of frail. We wanted to see, could they set them up by themselves? They're heavy. I mean, each of these tents, there weren't even big ones, but they were heavy. And could they carry them around? Could they physically get them out of their car to the place and then physically set it up by themselves? Did they have to have help? We wanted to know all those things. So we bought each one as a test. So far, so good. By then they were out of the desert and into the forest, and it was great in the forest. Tents are great in the forest. So if you can somehow be in the tents in the summer in the forest, that's ideal. But you got to be able to get into your vehicle in the desert and out of that misery and sleep in your car. We think the tents will hold up. Those Kodiaks and spring bars will hold up fine. They'll stay put. You just don't want to be in them. So if you can get everything out of the car and into the tent, then you can sleep just fine in the car. That's what we're wanting to see. If that will solve the problem for these ladies this winter, or maybe I'm all wrong. Maybe the spring bars and the Kodiaks are just fine in the desert. We'll find out. We're going to do a test, and I'd like to get more. What I really want to do is buy a quality canvas teepee tent. They're pretty expensive. Of course, the spring bars are expensive. They were $500, I think, or $600. We had to get a bigger one. They didn't have the smaller ones in stock. They're $600. So we're talking at least $500-$600. I'd like to get a high quality canvas teepee. I think that's the answer because it sheds wind. They have to be pretty big because there are no walls. But I think that's what I'd like to do. I'd buy one. if you're interested in living in a TP this winter, write to Homes on Wheels Alliance at gmail.com. Is that right, Casey? Homes on Wheels Alliance at gmail.com?
That's correct.
Okay. Write to them, and I'd really like to buy someone a one of these quality teepees, canvas teepees, and see if that won't hold up. It might be a solution. Tents are so great. We just have to find a viable solution for the wind. Okay, that's enough. I hope I've communicated to you, and I've had people come to me and say, "Bob, you recommend tents," and I don't. I don't recommend tents in the desert. They're a last resort. If it's live in a tent or in a cardboard box under a bridge, take the tent. But if that's your only as your last resort, if you can be in a car, now a car, I tell you the answer, and I do have a video about this: a minivan and a tent. The tent is great 2/3 of the year, but that other third, you've got to get out and into the minivan. If you can do that, a tent will work well. A quality tent. You got to buy a really good quality tent because the wind and the sun will destroy a cheap one really fast. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to answer questions. Karen, how do you heat a tent? In any time, but in a windstorm, you heat a tent with a Mr. Buddy heater, and it works really well. I've known quite a few people who bought Mr. Buddy heaters and set them up in their tent, and they work great. You do have to ventilate. I mean, you can die in there, so you have to leave windows open. That would be a great thing with the one of the a good quality canvas TP is because they have and not only that, but a good quality canvas teepee you can do wood heat. And so that's something to really give thought to. One of these little wood stoves, and then they're vented out. And yeah, that's something I'd like to do. If you are interested in living in a teepee this year, you have to stay somewhat nearby to wherever I am, which will be probably in the Quartzsite, Yuma, Parker area. I'll set you up with one to test, and I want to tell people how this works, and I'll get you set up, and you can find out, and you can tell us, will it work, and is it viable? I think we're off to a pretty cold start. I think this could be a really cold winter. I don't know yet. So yeah, mostly you're going to use a Mr. Buddy heater. That's what most people do. You got to watch for ventilation. I would definitely have a carbon monoxide detector in a tent, no matter what I did. In any vehicle, you should have a carbon monoxide detector if you're running any kind of propane heat inside. With the wood stove, it wouldn't be so, it's going to be smoky before you'll get it with carbon monoxide. Okay, Rob, that was Karen. Thank you, Karen. Great question. So it's just a Mr. Buddy heater. That's all. Or wood stoves if you have that kind of a tent. Rob and Marvy ask, when we are in the one spot for more than 5 days, we set up our 10 by 14 Kodiak. Kodiaks are great tents. We bought a Kodiak and it's worked really well so far. What do you think of the Kodiak tents? Great tents? Yeah, I think so far we bought a spring bar and a Kodiak. Our spring bar was a little bigger. Comparing the two directly so far, I believe we're thinking the spring bar is a slightly better tent. But that's not to say anything negative about the Kodiak. It's a great tent. We'll know more after the winter. We'll see how they do in the winter. Yeah, Kodiak's a great tent. You won't regret it. Jonathan, what do you think about the tents that are on top of vehicles as a long-term way to go? Would you ever have one yourself? Who makes the best one? Actually, it's interesting that you asked. There is a tent an outfit here in Bend, Oregon, who's in Oregon. You see their tents all the time. They make rooftop tents. Oh, if you don't know what a rooftop tent is, it's a platform that sits up on the roof, and then it folds out, and a ladder drops down, and legs drop down. So here's the roof, here's the platform, and here's the legs, and they work really well, and they're big. And they're really big among the overlander community. Overlander means they go around the world. They'll just set off and go around the world on really, really bad back roads and bad places. They're adventurers, but they use them a lot and they love them. Numerous advantages: get you up off the ground. So critters, a lot of critters are no longer an issue. And for some reason, critters, uh, once you're, when something blends into the vehicle, they think of it as part of the vehicle. They don't think that it's someone's in there. I mean, critters don't think that way. But if there's any smooth food smells in there, they're going in for the food smells. So you would never ever want food in any tent. Oh, I should say that. No food in any tent ever. No food odors. And it's really, really hard not to have a food odor. If nothing else, you don't want the squirrels chewing their way through and coming in and destroying your tent. You don't want the little vermin. You certainly don't want bears or coyotes or mountain lions attracted to the smell of your tent. You avoid that. It's one of the advantages. Okay, car top tents. So I went and interviewed. This one in Bend is Cascadia Vehicle Tents, CVT. You see them all over Oregon. They're made here. And so we actually went and interviewed him. We did a factory tour of the showroom, the showroom tour, and I was very impressed. It's an option. There are a lot of advantages. You get a lot of room. They fold down flat. They go up and down pretty fast. Their cheapest, smallest one is like $1,200, which is really cheap. I mean, those things go up usually into the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range for a high quality rooftop tent. That's a very, very good price. Um, I'm open to buying one and giving one out to someone to test for a year. You have to commit to being around, and I'm going to do ongoing. No more than no less than every 3 months. I'd like to do a video with you, and then get it out to the community. How's it working? I don't want to do it. I have a van. I live in my van. I don't want to live anywhere else. I carry all this camera equipment and so on. I can't. It's not practical for me. But if you need something, I'd like to try out one of their tents. And so if you're interested in that, let me know. I'd be very interested in buying one and having it tested. And then one of our ideas with these things is you take the tent, you live in it, and you save your money, and then you move up into the minivan. You really want to be into a minivan if at all possible, or a full-size van or an RV or whatever you can afford. And then you give it back. We hand it to the next person. That person lives in it until they can save the money and move up. We see it as a stepping stone more than a permanent solution. And I think it could work really well for that. And these high quality tents should last through hopefully multiple owners. And we'll find out that way. They'll be used all the time, and we'll get good reports, and we'll know a lot about them. Okay. Sarah, what kind of tent do you think is best? Canvas, Mountaineers, teepee, or nylon? Very good question. Nylon will be destroyed by the wind. They are all UV resistant, but I said wind, I meant sun. Nylon is extremely susceptible to the sun. That's no big deal if you use a tent 2 weeks, 3 times a year. You got 6 weeks out in the sun. Well, how many years would it take to destroy a tent? On the other hand, if you set your tent up every day, 365 days of the year, how long will it take for the sun to destroy it? Not long at all. So if you put it out, let's say you put it out for 45 days a year, 3 weeks. No, that would be 6 weeks, wouldn't it? 15 is 2 weeks. Yeah. So if you put it out 6 weeks a year, and that's a lot. How many people go camping 6 weeks a year? That's only 6 weeks, but you're going 52 weeks. And it's out that whole time, and it's just not going to hold up. They're going to be destroyed. I don't recommend nylon for that reason. You get more flapping. Then the next question would be mountaineering. Well, the mountaineering is going to shed the wind and hold up, because you get up on a mountain and it's 40 below and it's a 70-mile-an-hour wind. It's got to be quite a tent to endure that. And they make them that will. And they won't have all the flapping and the shaking. They're just so well built. They're $500. They're small. They're like this to shed wind. They're nylon. They're not designed to be 365 days a year of the sun. The sun will destroy them as fast as any nylon tent. You'd have to replace it because of the sun. But in every other way, a mountaineering tent is ideal. It's designed for that kind of weather, to endure it long term. It's just the sun's going to get it. You can't stop that. No UV resistant will keep the sun UV's rays from destroying that nylon tent. You wouldn't get more than a year or two, and it's could easily be a $600 tent for a quality 4-season mountaineering tent. Easily $600. So you got that problem. And then you got the canvas. And they're designed and they're UV resistant and they're just not destroyed by the sun in the same way that nylon is. It's damaged by the sun, but it's long term and slow. You'll get decades out of the sun with a canvas. I mean, people set them up and leave them up for long periods of time. They're intended to be outside set up for a long period of time. So, by far the best material is canvas. I think you'll get less flapping, you'll get less shaking. You'll be much more likely to sleep. They're water resistant. They swell up. The idea is that the fabric swells up as it gets wet, and then it fills up so tight that they don't let water through. And then when they dry out, they will breathe a bit, and so you let some of the moisture out. So lots of good things about canvas. Again, I'm really looking to test a canvas teepee. Buy a canvas teepee, loan it to somebody for the whole winter, and see how it holds up and works, and what all your thoughts are. So those are my general thoughts. Probably a canvas teepee is your best bet. I think you see a lot of modified canvas teepees at a Burning Man. See, Burning Man, but it's only 2 weeks or whatever Burning Man is. It's not even 2 weeks, is it? So it's only 2 weeks out of the year. And yes, it's horrible conditions for that 2 weeks, but you're not doing 2 weeks. You're doing 52 weeks this year, 52 weeks next year, 52 weeks the year after, until you can save enough money to move up. And there's no comparison between 2 weeks a year of Burning Man and 52 weeks a year in the desert and in the national forest. You can't think of them as the same terms. You've got to realize RVs are designed to be lived in 4 weeks, 5 weeks a year? You're living in them 52. They're just not designed for that. That's why people are having all these problems with them when they go full time. They can't hold up to that. They're not designed for it. And the tents are the exact same way. And even the Burning Man tents, which are usually some pretty great tents, but at least if you know it holds up for that 2 weeks, you're off to a good start. And so you do see a lot now. They're teepees, but they have like 2 or 3 feet of wall, and then they go into the teepee. That gives you a lot more usable space and a lot of the same shedding of the wind. This is what you got to have, shedding wind. There's a reason the Plains Indian lives in teepees. There's a really good reason, because nothing else works in that kind of wind. Period. Nothing is easy to move and transport and set up. And that's what we are. We're following the examples of the Plains Indians. We need something that will hold up 365 days a year, that's easy to take up, take down, and travel with. And what's that? It's a teepee. It's nothing else. Everything else is a pale imitation, is a white man's thinking, is the sedentary man's thinking about how to live in a house. Well, we can't take that sedentary thinking about how to live in a house and apply it to our homes. I think the teepee is the way to go. Okay, I better stop. Jonathan, what do you think about the tents that are on top of the? Oh, we just read that one. Yeah. No, I wouldn't have one of those tents myself, but I would not long term. My van's full of equipment. I got a dog. What are you gonna do with your dog up there? I wouldn't pick him up and put him down every day. I wouldn't. If he jumps in and out, that's going to do damage. They're tall. Some of them are pretty tall. If it was on top of a van or a pickup, it would be tall. We saw a lot of them on cars. They put them on cars, and I would definitely be willing to, especially on a car. You get a lot of wind resistance. Your gas mileage is going to drop. But they're not all that heavy. I forget. I got a video coming out on it. I think it's going to be a really good video. Okay, Jacqueline Duvall, there's some very high-tech tents now made for all kinds of weather. Can you recommend any of them that are lower priced? Well, again, at this point, I would be recommending the Kodiak and the Spring Bar They're high quality. They've been around. Kodiak's been around for decades. I don't know about on Spring Bar. I think since the 50s. I remember reading their story when we bought one and gave it away. I believe since the 50s. They're made by a guy. I don't think his name was Spring Bar. Franklin something. I remember the story. Spring Bar is not his name. They're high quality tents. They're made right in Salt Lake City. You can go to the factory and see them. You need a repair, you can send. You can go right back to the factory in Salt Lake, and they'll do a repair. I mean, it's family-run business, and I would recommend Spring Bar. That'd be the tent I would recommend the most. Okay, those aren't particularly high tech, although they're just made. The steel tubing is probably the highest tech thing on them. I mean, canvas tents have been around a long, long time. Okay. What about winter sleeping bags? Any recommendations, down or synthetic? Down is warmer, compresses better. You don't really care about compression. If you're living in a car, you'd care about compression. You get them wet and they don't heat. The heat stops once they get wet. That's a big problem. I recommend synthetic. I really do. They won't pack as small. They won't be as warm per ounce, but they'll keep you warm if they get damp. And you say, well, why would it ever get damp? Well, if you're in a tent and you get some condensation, and if you're stuck in a tent for a long time, you might very well, they'll get damp. Your body puts out a quart of moisture every night. If you're human, that's what happens. You put out about a quart of moisture every night. Well, most of that moisture goes into your tent. If it's very cold, what will happen is this. Usually it's pretty cold for this to happen. You're putting out warm, moist air out of your body, quart a night, and as it rises out to the cold on the top, the nylon outer shell, when it hits the nylon outer shell, it becomes cold. Warm, moist air, when it hits cold, drops its moisture. That's what it does. It always does. It's science. It's not optional. And so it drops its moisture, and slowly you start to build up moisture in your tent if it's that cold. If it's below freezing, that will start to happen because the nylon's below freezing. That's cold. When your body's 98 degrees in there, and as it warms up and goes up, it drops its heat, and as it goes up, when it eventually hits a 30-degree piece of nylon, it drops its moisture, and it condenses, and it's damp. And it'll be damp in the morning. And so that's where it's coming. The dampness is coming if it's cold enough. So I am a fan more of synthetic. For backpackers, yeah, it's worth it. You got to fluff them up, get them dried out the next day. I won't tell that story. I lived in Alaska for a long time, and I've slept a lot at 30 below outside, and but I could get my sleeping bag inside warmed every day and dried out. Otherwise, I couldn't have made it. It would have gotten damp and wet and wet and wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter, and eventually I'd have died. I couldn't do it. Linda Maley, looking forward to this. I have a small tent, but I assume it would be easier with a sturdy canvas tent you can stand up in. I have my sights set on a spring bar, 10 by 10. Well, that's a big one. They are one of the things you got to be aware of is these are big, heavy tents, and even when you break them down by components, so you take the body is all one piece, and you'd have to wrap it up and take the body, and then well, there is no fly, but the poles are steel and really sturdy, and but they're big and heavy, and that'll be a separate piece. I think at least one of them is going to be 30 pounds. Can you handle? Should be back on. Yeah, it should be back on now. I don't know why that why that happens. Okay,
you're back on.
What was the question? She wanted to know. She has a small. Again, I'd encourage you to think of tents only as temporary until you can get into a van, a minivan in particular. You're going to pay $500 for this tent. Well, for $3,000, and I know that's 6 times more. They're not comparable. It's easier to come up with $500 than it is with $3,000. $3,000 will buy you a darn good minivan. We're doing it. We bought a minivan here in Medford, and Casey, who's king of searchers for used vehicles, dude, she found dozens of them. How many did you found a lot of them, didn't you, Casey?
Yeah, there was probably like 8 good options.
She had like 8 good options for all in the ballpark of 3,000, maybe a little more. There are a lot of them out there at that price range, about 100,000 miles, usually in the early 2000s. But there are a lot of good minivans out there. The people, they had them for a while and they get tired of them, or the kids grow up or whatever, and they let them go. Now, I just see the tent as an intermediary step while you're saving towards the minivan. Minivan will be so much more comfortable than a tent. I really, truly. And a spring bar is a great one. It's going to be $500 or $600. And I think of the two, I think spring bar is the better tent. I would buy a spring bar before I bought a Kodiak. We've got videos coming out. They're scheduled to be edited soon. So we'll do a review and comparison between the spring bar. I think we decided universally that the spring bar was a slightly better tent, but the Kodiak's fine. You won't regret buying a Kodiak. But they're big. You got to build it in there. We'll show you one of our single ladies setting it up by herself. It's going to be a lot easier with 2 people. It takes a little bit of muscle power. There are a lot of videos online, and I suggest you go watch a video, make sure you can do it, of setting up a Kodiak or a spring bar tent. Lots of videos. We shot one too, and we'll put it up, but there's dozens of them online, how to set up a spring bar tent, Kodiak tent. Make sure you can do that. They're elaborate and fairly difficult.
We're still on card 1. We got 4 cards.
Oh my goodness, better hurry up. Sorry. Vaughn Norton, do you believe there are tents that are better equipped for living in? Would you live in a yurt? Well, again, we're mobile. How hard is it to set up and tear down a yurt and just do it often? If you got to move every 14 days, do you want to set up and tear down a yurt every 14 days? I don't know, but I don't know much about yurts. I don't know anything about yurts. But my guess is you don't want to set up and tear down a yurt every 14 days. If you're not doing that, if you don't have to do it every 14 days, you're not really mobile. And so, yeah, if you're not mobile, you got a world of options that we who are nomadic don't have. I can't imagine yurt being a solution for a real nomad moving every 14 days. But I'm not an expert. I've never lived in a yurt. It just doesn't look like it to me. Card number 2. Better keep going. Can you lock a tent while you're sleeping in it, and should you? Yeah, you can put, well, the simple would be to put a zip tie in the zipper, where the zippers come together. Where the zippers come together, there'll be a hole in each of the zip ties. You can just zip tie it together. And keep a pair of scissors. If you buy a package of 100 zip ties, you could do that every night for 3 months for a few bucks. No one can get it apart. But anyone with a knife just slashes through. I mean, no, there's no real security in a tent. It just isn't. I'm sorry. There just isn't. No, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I've never locked, I know a lot of people do lock their doors while they're inside the vehicle. I've never locked the door on any vehicle I've ever lived in. People can just open my door and get it at any time. Okay. It's just really up to you and your fear level and your needs for security. Obviously, a tent just offers very little security compared to a hard-sided van. No hard protection against critters. Any critter is going through that tent that wants in it. Yeah, security is not why you buy a tent. It's why a lot of people wouldn't buy a tent. Another reason why you should consider a minivan. Douglas Clark, what is the best way to stake down a tent in the desert Southwest? Well, they make special tents for sand. If you're in a particularly sandy area, nothing but these special tents. They're kind of like aluminum iron, angle iron, and pointy at one end. Actually, you could just take aluminum angle iron, say a 3-inch by 3-inch, and put a pointy into it, just cut it. That aluminum angle iron is pretty easy to cut with a jigsaw. Maybe even, I don't think you could do it with tin snips, but good tin snips, maybe you could. And then that's going to hold in sand. Otherwise, by far the best stake, the one that I love, is rebar. And if you're in the desert Southwest, just go to Quartzsite. There's a K&B Tools. They're become pretty commonly available all over Quartzsite now, but K&B Tools has a big selection of tent stakes. And so I really recommend K&B Tools in Quartzsite, and I love their They're rebar. You can get them at different lengths. The smallest one's a foot. It's literally rebar, and they've pointed one end and they've welded on a loop at the other. Perfect stake. I really recommend that. I don't know if you can buy one like that on Amazon or not, but if you're going to be down there, I'd go to Quartzsite and get one. Chad Smith, what do you do when it's hot and humid when camping? Nothing. You're just going to be hot and humid. If it's hot and humid, now, are you on the East Coast? Get out of the East Coast. Okay. That's my first suggestion. Don't be on the East Coast. But I understand, you know, if your family's there, your home's there, you got to sell it, and your family's there. I lived in Anchorage, Alaska in a van for 6 years, and my kids were there, and I was going to be there. So that's that. There's no solution. There is no solution. There's no solution to beat the heat or humidity other than to move. And if you cannot move, you're just going to be hot and miserable. A fan, you know, there's a lot of obvious solutions. Be in the shade. That's critically important. Be in the shade. Create your own shade. You got the tent, but inside there, it's just going to be hot and humid. And fans. You'll need solar. You can get the solar suitcases and set up your own solar outside and run a fan. Carry a battery, carry a generator. My first friend that lived in a tent that I ran into in the desert had a really good quality Eureka, and he carried a Yamaha 2000 and kept his batteries in his car, on the floorboards of his car. Charge the batteries, set the generator outside, charge the batteries inside, ran extension cords, and ran everything 110 off of inverters, which works fine. He had with a 2000 watt Yamaha, he had unlimited power. Just run the generator. Kept those batteries full all the time. You don't care about waste of an inverter. Not important. So that's how you can have power. You can run fans. Fans are the only answer. I don't have answers. Shade and fans. There's just no beating the heat. I don't have any. Or AC. You actually could run an AC. If he had bought a window air unit, he could have set up a window air unit or a portable air conditioner with the hoses that take the vent outside. He could have set up a portable air conditioner. If you have a van, you could set up a tent and put a portable air conditioner, run a generator, have AC that way. Or you could run a dehumidifier in there. Yeah, those are all viable options. My friend could have with his Yamaha. Okay, I'm packing now, going to leave in the morning on my motorcycle. This is the first time I have left the county on my own in 25 years. Congratulations. You know, it takes boldness and courage to do that. I know we fall into the rut of our lives, and it's so easy just to live there the rest of your life. Thank you for being so bold and brave. I honor and admire that courage that must be taking you. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. Dub BGS, that's your name. This is the first time I have left the county my own in 25 years. So much anxiety. I haven't slept in 2 days. I understand. It's a bold step you're taking. Really, be proud of yourself. Pat yourself on the back. You're doing a great thing. Go hang in there. I don't know. You don't give me much, and on a motorcycle at that. I've done actually quite a bit of motorcycle camping. I've considered strongly my first time out after moving into the lower 48. I'm going to tell my story eventually. Rather than move into a vehicle I considered a tent, I'm a motorcycle guy. I love motorcycle camping. I owned a Goldwing and drove all over the country and just tented the whole kind of time. I considered a motorcycle tent and pop-up. You know, they make nice ones, really nice ones. They're expensive, very, very expensive. Small. I don't think they'd hold up all that well. I don't know. But I had to have a dog. I got to have a dog. And so you can't really, it's not practical. I wasn't getting a sidecar. I wasn't going to have him ride on the back seat or on this gas tank. I just wasn't going to do that. But it's a viable option. So congratulations. You're just tent camping. And whatever you're just going tent camping. That's all. You're limited in size and space by the luggage that you've got on your motorcycle, whatever it might be. The Goldwings had a lot of luggage space, so that was the advantage. You can buy just little trailers that were very strong and durable, and you can carry a lot more stuff. You If you have the motorcycle that can handle that, that would be great. Living off a motorcycle is viable. Um, it's an option, but be very proud of yourself. You're brave and you're bold, and I wish you were here where you could join one of our caravans, so you didn't have to be alone in all this. I know it's fearful. I wish if you were out west, you could join a caravan, and that's why we've created the caravan, Sue Ann and I, to be able to, for people like you who are venturing out for the first time in a very long time, that you won't be alone, and that's the most scary part, is being alone. Um, be be very proud of yourself. You're doing something great. Uh, Anonymous, what kind of tent should you use if you live in it full time? Canvas wall tent, or preferably a canvas teepee tent. That's what I recommend. Kodiak or Spring Bar. Any time of the year, they're the way to go. Ron Leak, does that mean you get 14 days from the time the Rangers see you, even if you leave and come back? It depends on every forest. You're almost all the forests you're allowed 14 days. The assumption is it's going to be 14 days straight. And some forests or BLM and BLM ranger districts, they're all different. In some, you can be 14 days on, 14 days off, and then come back and be there 14 days again. Sometimes that's legal. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you can only be there 14, have to be gone 28, and then you can come back for 14. I think that's less common. I think the most common is 14 off, 14 gone, come back 14. Most common, but it's changing and it's different everywhere. Now, occasionally it's very severe. Like there are places around Phoenix in the Tonto National Forest where it's like 10 days a year. They have a set amount you can be there per year. It's so popular, so many people come, that they limit everything very severely. Another one is outside of Lone Pine, California, in the Alabama hills. I believe it's 10 days a year there. Oh, it's 14. I believe it's 14 days a year, and then you've got to be gone a year, and then you can come back and have your another 14 the next year. But I'm not 100% certain of that, but I'm pretty certain. So it varies everywhere. Normally it's 14 on, 14 off, come back. Occasionally it's 14 on, 28 off, 14 come back. Sometimes it's severe, once a year. So you have to know the laws for your particular place. You can call the ranger district and they'll tell you. It's not hard to find out. It's not a big secret. Just call the ranger district and ask them. You can find it wherever you are. You'll find the phone number online. Okay, I got that. Number 3. What time is it? Oh, shoot, we're out of time now.
It's 4 o'clock. We got one more card.
Okay.
If you want to go a little over.
Renamed Paul, my canvas tent was literally 200 degrees warmer than the outdoor temperature. Yes, that's one of the wonderful things generally about a canvas tent, is they stay much warmer, and it's entirely possible to live in some pretty cold places with a wood stove, and a lot of them are designed for wood stoves. They have the jacks, the opening in them that's made in a special way to handle a stove. So yeah, and yeah, they're entirely viable to live in a canvas tent through the winter if you have a source heat. You have to have a source heat if it's really cold. Alice Christian, can you dig under your tent to protect yourself from the cold winds in the desert? Ground temps are 55 degrees or so, aren't they? Once you get deep enough, ground temps are 55 degrees, not at the surface. At the surface, they maintain the same surface temperature. And believe me, I know that because I won't tell you the story. It'd take too long. But no, digging a hole is not practical. It's not legal, for one thing. You're not allowed to disturb the BLM or national forest land by digging holes you can live in. It's not something you should do. It just isn't a good thing. And it's not practical. No, the surface is not. It thaws and freezes. I don't go into all the details, but no, it's just not practical. Do you recommend a small electric fence around exterior of tent campers? No. Why? What are you worried about? No. unless you're in a bear country, and you'd have to really be in severe bear country before. No, you got way too much fear. You just don't need. I mean, there are places in the country where you do. They are few and far between, and you will probably never be in them. And so, for example, Yellowstone, you can't set up a tent in Yellowstone. They want you to be on a hard-sided vehicle because it's unsafe. And so, anywhere where you would need an electric tent, it's probably illegal to use a tent. How about a lavu, sort of like a teepee? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I can't comment because I don't know that. If it's sort of like a teepee, I'm a fan of teepees. I think they're the way to go. Kathy Joe, TX Girl, Lags and Boots. What about critters with a tent? Big issue. Yeah, critters will get in. They might chew their way in. If you have food in there, they'll chew their way in to get in there. Yeah, critters are a big issue. Of course, bears or coyotes or mountain lions, if they want in, are getting in. Big issue. And there are no good answers. So you could set up an electric fence, but my goodness, that's pretty severe. I've never even occurred to me in my whole life to set up an electric fence. There are certain places where you would. 99% of us will never be in the places where you might need an electric fence, or critters are really going to be an issue. Mainly, it's going to be an annoyance. Joseph Gregory, got a cot tent. Keeps you off the ground. Use it when family visits so they can use the bedroom and can have peace outside. Yeah, I knew I had a friend who once lived off his motorcycle. He actually had a sidecar. That's where he put his dog. His dog went in the sidecar, and he carried everything and set up a what is that called? A cot tent. So it's a cot, and then it has a pop-up tent that goes around it. Really cool. It'd be extremely cold in the winter. Well, you'd have to put down a pad. If you put down a pad, it wouldn't be. Doesn't seem like a viable long-term solution. It's not a viable long-term solution. It's not really an answer. It's a short-term answer for a specific problem, but not something you're going to live in. No. Yeah, you see, you're using it for a short-term solution to a problem. Families visits, you need a place to set them up. It works great. I wouldn't want to live in one. Teresa M, thanks Bob for the comparison. What are the best tents, Spring Bar or Kodiak? I think Spring Bar is slightly better tent, but Kodiak's great. That's not to say anything bad about Kodiak. I remember us concluding, we had a lady living in they lived together for probably a couple, 3 months. One of them was in a Kodiak, one was a Spring Bar. They talked about each one and back and forth and compared them. And I think the solution, the agreement was the Spring Bar was a slightly better tent. Slightly. Kodiak's a great tent. I'm not bad-mouthing Kodiak at all. Maria Cougary, how heavy is a teepee? Probably really heavy. Probably 50 pounds or more. I would like that more, but to carry everything in the storage space in a car is a concern. It is a big concern. Again, they all break down into parts. The tent part itself, the canvas part, will roll up and become one part and will have its own bag. And then the poles, which are usually steel and heavy, will be in another. And yeah, I think it's like 50 pounds for the two on the Spring Bars. And those were small Spring Bar tents. I think one was 8 by 10 and the other one was a 10 by 10. And they were very heavy. We even broken apart the canvas and the stake and the tent and the legs, the frame. They were both fairly heavy. I think they were 20. The heaviest one was 20 or 30 pounds. Being able to handle it, being able to set it up, that's all a really big issue. Yes, I would almost want to test one to make sure you could. Or if you're around with other people, a couple, 3 people are going to set it up, no problem. Okay. Setting it up is a big, big issue. Finding the space for it in a car is a big, big issue. That's a point for a rooftop tent. Doesn't take up any space in your vehicle at all. Your home is entirely outside. Alice, do solar fences stop bears? I had a friend push stakes for dogs and wires and area around exteriors, says it's safe, but is it? I would only, if there are electric fences made for bears, only get one made for bears. Don't get one made for dogs. You need an electric fence made for bears. Again, this is except for a very few places on the planet, on the country, this is not an issue. Bears are not an issue. Just don't go where the bears are a problem. Find out if there are bear boxes in the nearby campground. If there are bear boxes, there are bears. They're an issue. If there are no bear boxes, chances are they will not be an issue to you either. Um, just choose your place where you're going to be with that idea in mind. So I'm here in Oregon, and it didn't occur to me there were bears anywhere near us. A friend of ours was camping about a mile away up the road, a little more out into the wilderness. And we're not at a campground or anything, but it never occurred to me there were bears. She had a bear run through her campground. But the bear was not interested in her, and I'll tell you why. They hunt here. They hunt bears here. In fact, it's bear hunting season right now. And I've been in a lot of places where there's active bear hunting and deer hunting, and bears are terrified of people. They're the prey. They don't want anything to do with you. Where bears are a problem is where it's remote enough or it's illegal to hunt bears. All the national parks are a bad problem with bears, if it's bear country, because it's illegal to hunt them there. They've lost their fear of people. If there's regular and consistent bear hunting going on, they're terrified of you and they're getting away from you as fast as they can. Chances are, sometime in their life, they've seen a bear killed by a human. All of a sudden, there's a loud noise and a bear dies. They don't want to be around you. Okay, stake it down with the dog, corkscrew anchors, Dollar General. It's not the issue of staking it down. It's the issue of the livability inside it in a windstorm. That's the concern. It's been too long since I said that. The issue isn't can you keep the tent standing? The issue is how miserable are you going to be every night inside that tent? Even if it stands, it's going to flap. It's going to do this all night. And it will probably do this all night. And it'll be cold because the wind will pull every ounce of heat out of that. No matter, even if you have a heater, it will be cold and it will be noisy. It will be alive and moving. It is miserable to be in a tent in a windstorm. Doesn't matter if the tent survives. Doesn't matter if it stands up. You're still miserable. Miserable's miserable. And that's the issue with tents, the misery they create while you're trying to sleep. You can keep them. There are lots of tents you can, if the tent is physically able to withstand it. I told you I had a friend with a Eureka. I can't remember the name, but Eureka makes some darn good tents. So this was their best wall tent, and it withstood a year. Minor damage, no problem. He didn't do it again the next year. The next year he was in a van. He I never known anyone who was in a tent 2 years in a row. But I had another friend in the next size down, exact same model, and it didn't make it the year. It was destroyed. Same Eureka, good quality tent, really good quality tent, but it was destroyed by the wind. What, Casey? I know we're done.
Yeah, you have one very last question, and then the live feed schedule to tell people what's coming up.
Okay. Peace, love, and happiness. Yes, isn't that scary sleeping in a tent with bad people always lurking? I'm so sorry to say this, but there aren't bad people lurking everywhere. I know we almost enjoy being scared of bad people lurking everywhere. You know, I've been looking for bad people lurking everywhere for the last 17 years. I haven't found them yet. I know there are bad people lurking everywhere because everyone tells me they are. And you know what I found instead? Fantastic people lurking all over the place in plain sight. Fantastic, wonderful people. Someone asked me today, have I ever been scared of someone out here? Never. And I've asked a lot of women, and it is different for women. And a few of them have run into instances where there were bad people lurking. I can't say it's never there, They're very, very few and very far between. And that's one of the reasons I recommend you get a minivan instead. A $3,000 minivan solves so many problems. Start saving towards a minivan. That's really my recommendation for everyone. But you can also join a caravan. The caravan is full of good people surrounding you. So join a caravan, live in the tent, save as much money as you can till you can buy a minivan, and then you'll feel a lot better. So that's really there aren't bad people lurking. Really, honestly, there aren't. That's just, it's society's fear to keep you locked, trembling in your house. And it works. You're locked, trembling in your house now because you're afraid to go out there because of all the bad people lurking. Their trick works. So you remain an obedient servant to the system. You're out buying things every day and spending money every day and slaving away at a job, making someone else rich every day. Every day is devoted to you making someone else rich while you live and tremble in fear in your house. That's a great system for society. It's not so good for you. I wish something better for you. And the first thing is to get over the idea of bad people lurking everywhere. They're not. They're out there. There are. It's not a perfect world, but they're very few and very far between. Okay, we should do Bubbles.
Coming up live feed schedule.
Okay, and Bubbles.
Oh, and Bubbles.
Oh, Bubbles! There we go, Bubbles, Bubbles, Bubbles. Oh, Cody runs out. Where is the live? Oh, there's at the top. Okay. All right, so here's the live feed schedule as we go out with Bubbles. October 9th, a week from today, is a car SUV panel. We will have 3 people in. None of them will be present. They'll be out, I don't know where they'll be. And we'll do a live video of a panel. All of them live in a car or an SUV. And so that might be a better option for you than a tent. October 16th is the Minivan Build-Out. We're going to be doing the Minivan Build-Out. We'll do a live broadcast from there. October 23rd should also be the Minivan Build-Out. We'll do a live build-out, see the progress, meet the people, meet the volunteers. We'll do that. October 30th is Minimalism on the Road. How to get rid of your stuff. That's a big question. And what to keep and what to get rid of and all of that good stuff. So that's the schedule, live schedule coming up. Where's the Bubbles? There they are. So I hope that helps. I hope I've shed some reality to the truth about living in a tent. It's and 6 months of the year in the forest, it's really good. 6 months of the year living in the desert, it can be really awful. Really, really awful. So there you go. Okay, folks, thanks so much for watching. Like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later.